Let's go.
Hello, hello.
Welcome in, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome into another podcast with Just Like Us. I'm your host, Justin Bird. This is my lovely co-host, Leti Z.
Hi, everyone.
Let's
Welcome
go.
in.
Welcome in, you guys. For anybody who's catching the episode after the live, welcome in as well.
Yes.
Thank you guys for joining us. Okay, so today in this episode, we're going to be talking about managing stress and overwhelm. It's a good one too. I feel like there's a lot going on that I could touch on for this topic. Finding peace in chaos. This is something that I myself am going through as we speak. I want to just share a little story, something I'm going through right now with school. So me and Lady we're in an academy, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot to learn in a short period of time.
Right.
And unlike your typical colleges or other schools that you pay for, this one they don't stress on you actually showing up and being there. If you want to be there, you show up. If you want to be part of it, you go to school and you learn. And so it's easy, so to speak, to kind of get relaxed and kind of what is the word when you're content? Complacent. Yes, thank you. And so after being in this academy for almost a year, there's a lot that we have learned, but there's also a lot that we haven't, and not being more I guess you could say not applying ourselves more to going to school. It's easy to get complacent because, again, you don't have somebody pushing you saying, hey, show up. If you want to go, you go. If you don't, you don't. But and so recently I found that having an overwhelming amount of stress has built up, in a sense of like it's really been overwhelming to the point where I'm almost dreading going into our studio where we're in now and sitting down and doing some of the work. And I've had to work through that. And so for me, what I've just recently figured out was I really need to be able to stop and take in the information before I go any further. And by that I mean I can book these classes. So the way it works is we book these classes, and then you show up, you get the information, and you kind of go and do the rest of the work without the teacher present. And so I find that I'll book like a couple classes a week, and I'll get one done, and I won't always implement what I've learned, but I will go and get on another project or something else before I actually go and do the task at hand. So this year, I have decided that I'm going to book a class, get the information, walk through it with the teacher, and then have that information and go move forward with that before I go do anything else. And I know it sounds simple, but it's so easy to get lost in the sauce because there's a lot going on, and you have a limited time, right? Like you have a year before you have to re-enroll, and that's a hefty fee. But so the point is through all of the stress, and it seems like overwhelming amount of information, I have found that I have the ability to step back and digest this information properly without being like and getting frantic about it. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help anybody else. I mean, let's be real here. That stress doesn't help anything. I mean, maybe if you're running from a lion in the jungle and you have to stress out and you have that the adrenaline in you to save your life, but we shouldn't be going through the stress on a daily basis, going to school, going to work, picking the kids up, going grocery shop. This shouldn't be a stressful thing, but it seems to me like everywhere we go, everywhere we look, it's stress. We got these these chemicals releasing in our body. I'm no doctor, but I can feel it running through my body, coursing through my veins on like a daily basis. And so for me, taking a step back, taking a deep breath, it may sound funny to some people, but to me, getting an extra bit of oxygen helps me out immensely. I mean, just really, and I see Justin doing it sometimes, and it's really cute, but it's actually, it's relieving to see this little boy, like, he get a little bit stressed, and you'll see him go, and it's so cool because he gets it. You know what I mean? And he's teaching me this. So to have him do that, it's really, it's empowering, So yeah. What do you have anything to add to that?
I just agree with all of what you just said. I mean, life in general can be very stressful because there's a lot of demands, on our time, on our attention, work, home life, kids, traffic,
everything.
Right? Just everywhere you go, it's rush. Go. And, this was when we enrolled in the school, this was something, way bigger than us. And it took some time to get adapted and acclimated and get a rhythm going. And even when we didn't understand, we still showed up,
Right. Yeah.
and that, um, and reached out within that community and found, people who were going through the same things that we were going through,
Right.
which has helped us
Yes.
get to this point. And so for that, we're grateful.
Yeah, being
Right.
resourceful, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
instead of just sitting there, because what I found recently too is touching on the subject that we're touching on with school.
Mm,
This is just a really good one because it seems to be it can be very stressful at times if you allow it. I mean, for us, it's been like that. But so recently, when I have issues, like I reach out to many of the stars, we call them spectacular stars, and I reach out to a lot of the community, and I find I get a lot of help through people
mm,
who are already, already at that point in our syllabus, so to speak. And so for me, it's being resilient and also being
mm.
resourceful, because it's not the lack of resources, it's the
Resources,
lack of resourcefulness.
resourcefulness.
So, and that's just something that we're learning and applying to our everyday
Mm,
when it comes to these kind of things. So it's up to us, but managing the stress, it can be at times a difficult task.
mm,
But I think with the right people around, like Justin, like I said just before, him having the ability to just stop, take a moment and really breathe. I learned from that. I mean, like
mm.
maybe I need to do that, and I do. I mean, you would think that I would have this kind of figured under control, but I'm learning too. I'm a student with God, and I'm learning too every day. So when I see the little 6-year-old boy do this, it's really touching to me. I'm like, okay, I can learn from that, and I do. And so
Mm,
I do that often too. And like, I think I'm not deep with the meditation yet, but
mm,
and I say yet because I know that there's power behind sitting back, really focusing on your breathing and focusing on, not focusing so much.
yeah,
That's from what I get. That's
yeah.
that's where I feel like I'm going to really start benefiting myself
Mm,
is by really taking a step back and taking a breath and not being so overwhelmed, or not allowing all of this outside information come
mm,
in when I'm not wanting it to. I need to set that standard of where I don't want information coming in when I don't want it to come in. I want to be able to shut this stuff
mm.
off and allow myself to take in Mother Earth, nature, and God, and not have all these outside entities and things that pouring
Yeah.
into my brain, pouring into my eyes,
Mm,
all my senses. And even like the clothes we wear, I feel like sometimes I wear like certain things, and I don't know if it has to do with the materials or what,
mm,
but I mean, it's stress everywhere. But it's up to us to manage it and to be able to take in what we need, and it can be difficult, but to practice
doable.
again through practice.
Yes, definitely
Yeah.
practice,
So
right?
yeah.
It's breaking it down into bite-size pieces, right? What you can take in, what you're capable of. Oftentimes, we kind of catastrophize things, and although there's a lot to do, we don't have to do it all in one day,
Why
right?
not?
We
No,
can,
just kidding.
I mean, you can if you
Just
want
kidding.
to, if you can handle
Right.
that, right? But a lot of us have, there's a lot of stress. You get overwhelmed because you look at it and go, oh my gosh. But when you really look at it, right, it's not as big as we make it out to be.
Right.
Right. So it's whatever we focus on gets bigger.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if we're focusing on stress, it's going to get bigger.
Right.
Right. And you have to recognize when you're getting stressed, and before it gets out of control. I know for me, like when I get stressed, I tend to get quiet. I like to pull back and just reflect, or I get irritable and grumpy,
Right.
and that doesn't go well for myself or anybody else, right,
Right.
included. And so some of the things that I like to do are go for walks, do meditation. I myself do that, prayer, turn on some music and just soak in it,
Breathing.
or breathing. Yeah, did I mention
Just
that?
no,
Breathing.
but
Yeah,
what we did now. Yeah.
yeah, now we did.
Breathing is,
So
is essential, I think.
yeah. So breathing and singing, getting out there and moving your body, even in your own home, right? Just to get rid of the stress energy that we have floating around in there. And so I just want to encourage you all today, if you're feeling stressed, let's just Take a deep breath together.
And smile. Why not? You know what I mean? Why
Smile.
not? And recognize when the stress takes over. Like I find
Mm,
that when I'm able to recognize it, that's when I can overcome it. And I don't want to defeat anything. I
mm,
just want to be able to to be able to handle it well when I need to, and not let it overcome me, because it's been easy to have that happen, lately. I mean, probably my whole life, but now recognizing and being able to recognize it, I think that's the first step and the key to being able to managing it,
mm,
in the right way. So, and pay attention to like racing thoughts,
mm,
exhaustion and feeling constantly like behind. Like myself, I have ADHD, and by no means do I think that's something that's going to hinder me, but I know it's a reality,
mm,
because growing up, it was like, why is this, so why is it such a difficult task to get something done, and what is the deal with me not being able to finish this and bouncing from here to here to here, and not having one thing get done, but having 20 great ideas and none of them are being accomplished. So for me, it was like chaotic. It was constantly growing up and getting to the bottom of a page and not really understanding why I cannot remember what I
mm.
read. And it's been like this since I was a kid. So,
Yeah.
and that could be due to stress. But again, having ADHD is not a hinder. I think there are times where I'm able to focus very intensely and get things done. But I think it's being able to recognize it and see
Mm,
when it's happening, and to take a step back and like analyze it. Okay, I see how that's happening, and it's being cognitive of it. Being aware of
mm.
when I'm
Right.
stressing and why. Like, what am I
Yeah.
allowing to stress? Because I don't think we even really know a lot of times what could stress us out. I mean, for me, anyways, it's just I have to really take a step back and digest what's going on and be
Mm,
like, what is it that? Why do I have that surge of that adrenaline kind of thing
mm.
flowing through my body? Because I feel it. It usually comes down my neck, over
Oh,
my
yeah.
shoulders, and like down this area, and I can feel it in my thighs.
Mm,
And so for me, it's being able to recognize that now that I'm sober, clean, more alert, and more into life, so to speak, because I have been subdued, so to speak, in
mm,
the addiction world, whether it be for the nicotine, alcohol, substance, caffeine, even the foods. I'm
mm.
sure these have a lot to do with stress and the chemicals that get released in our bodies. So for me,
Yeah.
it's just recognizing when it takes over and having the calming the chaos. Deep breathing, like we said, moving, having movement, and shifting focus to
Yeah.
we're in control here, you guys. We're in control of our bodies and our minds, and believe it or not, like you can actually control your blood flow, like your heart rate. If you're stressed out, you can, it takes some steps, but you just, make sure that you're focused on your breathing and your heart rate.
Yeah.
You can physically, literally, slow your heart rate down if you're hyped up, if you're as long as you're not running from a lion. You know what I mean? Like, I
Right.
don't think
Yeah.
it's that bad. I don't think, if unless there's somebody with a gun coming at you, like,
I think
you
it's
know,
perception, right?
yeah,
It's perception. It's the world we live in. It's the pressure we put on ourselves and the pressure that we allow other people to put on us to get things done, in a timely manner, right? And if you're not managing your thoughts or your eating habits or your sleeping habits, right, and breathing, then it can be an issue. It causes stress. And I think a lot of it has to do with, our what we are putting on ourselves, right? And we don't have to put that much on us. We can ask for help. I know that's something that I've struggled with, which is why I would create a lot of stress for myself. Like, I have to do this by myself, right? Because that's how it was for me. I had a lot of responsibility growing up. And so that's just how my life was. I took it on. Nobody gave it to me, right? But then people did start giving me things, but I also had, the choice to take it on or not to take it on. But I always felt so responsible, which then what? Just added more stress. And today I'm practicing asking more, right? And first of all, asking myself, what can I really do? Do I understand what I'm doing?
right.
And if I don't, asking some clarifying questions, which I don't always do, right? And sometimes we don't move until the pain gets too great,
Right.
right? And then other people get the brunt of that, and so and ourselves too. So I am, stepping into this year asking for more help
Right.
and accepting it too. Right? I don't have to be this, superhero does it all. Right? It takes all of us to succeed and I think help manage the stress too. If you're recognizing it like in your partner or somebody, it, offer, a helping hand,
Right.
offer to, lighten the load a little bit or ask, more clarifying questions yourself of the person that you see who's in need because, they might not be able to tell you what's going on because they're already in that racing thought pattern and like
Right. Yeah.
catastrophizing and having, thinking errors, and if you're somebody who can recognize that stress, help out
Right. Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you can,
And
right?
like with Justin, we don't really give him sugar, and it. You can see
Mm,
the amount of like I don't know what to call it, but I would say I can always tell when he has sugar.
mm,
Like I can point it out. Like, did you eat sugar? I mean, because I can see it, and
yeah.
that could itself cause stress on the parent
Mm,
or on a teacher, which could then. So certain things that we can do is minimize what we're taking in. Like let's just
mm,
be real here with the amount of chemicals that are in the food that we're eating on a daily basis. I would say a lot of the stress that we go through has a lot to do with what we're taking in our bodies, legitly. And
mm,
again, with work and school, it just feels like everything we do has so much stress on it. But it's up to us, I find myself reading ingredients now,
mm,
and again, for me, I feel like I want to get to the point where I don't have ingredients in my food, and
mm,
it's difficult. I've quit so many major things that are like blocking my blessing, so to speak. But I think food, this has been more or less like the more complicated one. I will break the habit of eating, unhealthy foods, but it has been a struggle for whatever reason. The chemicals they put in here, the colors that they put on the bags, the things
mm,
that we're used to, the crunch of the chip. There's so many things that I feel like attribute to like some of the stress that I go through because I mean, when I eat foods or drink coffee or these certain things, I feel like jittery, and that jittery
mm,
creates like a tension of stress,
yeah.
and I think that's like over heightened, like this feeling of just anxiety,
Yeah.
and that could be masked as a stress, so to speak. I mean, again, I'm no doctor, but in my experience, from what I've experienced, is
Mm,
having
right.
certain foods that I eat may not be an immediate high or an immediate rush or an immediate, but I bet some of the things when it finally gets to the gut and then these other things when it absorbs into
Mm,
all parts of the body. I just feel like there's a lot of things with the food that we eat that have they take its toll on our body. And so again, with Justin, I can tell when he has sugar in him because
mm,
he stops like listening as well as he normally would listen. He doesn't mind as well. And when I say mind, it's like, hey, can you please do this for me? And he was like, kind of like talk back and things. And I'm not attributing that's entirely to that. But what I'm saying is I can always tell when he has sugar in
mm,
him because
okay.
it creates like this overwhelming amount of energy and stress, it seems. And so I think, to actually sit and think, what are we putting in our bodies?
Mm,
I think that's important to really take and understand what are we ingesting
mm.
and allowing into this temple, this our vessel that God's given us to be able to navigate the world.
And
And
it's not just about eating foods
no,
too.
of
It's
course not.
about what we're reading, what we're watching,
Watching our phone, yeah,
what we're listening to.
right,
Right. I like to be intentional with, the music that I listen to or the books that I read because I don't want to live stressed out. I want to live in alignment with who I am, right? With who God has created me to be. And, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that that is what I'm doing,
right,
and it's not about being perfect at it, right? It is about practicing it, you know, finding out what your stressors are, and that means sitting with yourself, writing them out if you need to, you know, and then finding out what you can do by doing your research. This is the stress I'm having. What can I do about it? Right. And then doing it. Like for me, I did a lot of, the opposite of what I would do. And that took time. It took me finding out, what my stressors were, why they were being caused. And most of the time it was my thinking
right,
about it. And so, I have techniques, that I use, like I said, nature, that's like a huge one for me. I like to touch, trees and leaves and get my feet in the grass, or just go down to any body of water, the river, and just sit there and
Excuse me.
watch the water flow, right? Flow over the rocks, swirl around. I like to watch the ducks and the geese, and see how they interact with the
Right.
nature around them. And it just brings me a calm sense of peace. Like, I'm breathing in fresh air, I'm interacting with the world around me, which automatically makes me feel more connected to God and to myself and to those around me. Right? It's stepping back and taking breaks.
Right. Yeah.
Some people call them micro breaks.
Daily habits.
Yeah,
I mean,
that, yeah,
building daily
and
habits
that
is great.
helps to step away from whatever task you're doing. Sometimes just stepping away and coming back, you're able to clear your head a little bit and get back to the task at hand with a different mindset.
Right. Yeah.
I think mindset is another thing that can help you when you are trying to manage your stress, right? It's even if you have to do some affirmations, how I like to have little pep talks with myself in my head, sometimes out loud. It just helps me hear it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So that I'm training my mind so that my body follows
Right. Yeah.
what I'm asking it to do, right?
Mm.
We get to program
Yeah.
ourselves,
Exactly.
but we do have to deprogram
Right.
in order to reprogram, or unlearn
Yeah.
to
To relearn.
relearn,
Let's go.
right?
And often for me, I feel like sitting with it gives me a moment to like of clarity, so to speak. Like for
Mm,
me, like when I'm stressed out, like because it happens, kind of often, and I don't really like that feeling of like not having the control. Like, okay, it's cool. I don't need this. But lately, I've been finding
mm,
like just sitting with it again. With when I felt like a bit of depression, I was like, man, I
mm,
don't want to. Because normally, what I would do is I would run to drugs, run to alcohol or whatever it is to kind of like rid that pain or whatever it is I might be going through. So for me, I'm like that's powerful.
mm,
I don't think I was spiritually ready for,
mhm,
where I'm at now as opposed to
mm,
where I was, last year or even a couple months ago. I just feel like having that the reality of like, okay, spiritually ready means for me, is actually dealing with these emotions and things like real time, not having to go and flood this,
mm,
anything in my body to kind of like take away. Because if I love life so much, why would I ever want to take a minute from it? Right. That's how I feel. So if I just feel like me sitting with my thoughts is okay now. I'm 42 and I'm so okay with like just sitting with it. No more running from it
mm,
or into like chaos or like stuff that I don't need. Like just sitting with it, dealing with it like firsthand is so powerful. It is because I'm clear minded, I'm level headed, and I'm ready to take on
yeah.
these tasks that could be misconstrued and thought of as stress. I mean, there's so many things that I can build off of when I sit down and actually
Mm,
just take it in and not have so much, outside information coming in and hitting me with these bombardments of like, it could be a bit much. But for me, I like, what I have control is like, if I don't want the stress of having to make car payments, I don't need to go get a car. And I know it sounds
mhm,
silly, but when you break it down, I think, what am I even
mm,
stressing over? Yes, of course, we want electricity. Yes, of course, but we really need love. We really need food. We really need sunlight. We really need the basics. And I
each
know it
other.
sounds kind of silly, but like if you really break it down and think about what am I even stressing over, it's stuff that we have control of. We do. We have
Right,
control of this
right,
stuff, but
right.
we've been built and we've been taught and we've learned that this is the way to do it. You go to work, you go to you mean,
Mm,
but I say on the contrary, I don't need this stuff. I don't need electricity. Of course, you could survive without electricity and you could survive without chips bags and we could we'll be just fine, you guys. We would,
well,
I mean,
yeah,
we would,
we
but
would.
I mean, we've been trained for this. So for me, I'm just like, what stress am I allowing to be in
Mm,
my life? What am I what do we say, what is it, what am I
allowing.
allowing, but there's another word for it. What are we
Mm,
tolerating? What am I
tolerating.
tolerating and
Yeah.
letting in, flooding in my veins and my mind and my brain? I'm no doctor, but I just feel like I have more control than I'm really led to believe. So for me, it's taking a moment, taking a step back, and really sitting with it. Whenever I have some
Mm,
stress, like what am I really stressing over? What am I really,
yeah.
worried about?
Well, I think, at least in my experience, right, as I've remembered who I am and gotten to know myself and remembered that, I deserve a spot here on this earth, right? That I'm worthy
Go, baby. Yes.
of everything. I was born that way, just like all of you were born worthy.
Boom.
And you were born to love, right? And it's about loving yourself, right? And recognizing what you can remove, what stressors you can remove, because you have a choice. I mean, you can either stay in it or remove them,
Right.
right? And go on about your business. And it means in all areas, like your finances, relationships, jobs, gosh, let me out here. What else?
Every angle, food, going grocery shop, like
everything. I mean,
school,
traffic,
relationships, like you said. I mean, it's especially traffic. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, but and then I almost feel like stress is almost inevitable, but that is a really like it's a mindset. It's not a fact. So stress is not inevitable, but it seems like it is. But the overwhelm is an option. I feel stress is it's a factor. It's definitely a huge factor in our daily lives, but the overwhelm is optional. You know what I mean? Because we really don't have to be overwhelmed with anything. At any point, I could stop and like turn left and just not go the direction I was. And I mean that physically, and I mean that, metaphorically, instead of going toward whatever it is that's stressing me out. And it sounds easy, but it really is as simple as, all right, stopping what I'm doing. I'm not going to move toward that and go left. What is the outcome? What's going to happen if I do and don't? And even stressing about it. Just, I don't think that it's healthy. I don't. In my life, I've had so much anxiety and so much, like what some consider like stress, you know what I mean? As a kid. And I was thinking about something the other day, about how when I was a kid, my parents would argue and fight, and I would stay up and make sure that they didn't like physically harm each other. And it happened so much. My dad never hurt my mom. My dad, I'm sure my mom bombed on my dad. I'm sure she did. You know what I mean? And that's what kind of would keep me on edge. But these stress factors, like they really did something to me. It like over heightened my senses to where it was like I was like on edge about things. And I feel like having that as a young kid, it stuck with me for a lot of years. And so for me, I see like that's what I don't want. So call it what you want, but for me, I like to live in this place of like serenity, and I'm excited about things, but I like to really wake up in a good mood and be calm. I like to have things be like we're funny. You know what I mean? I think laughter is like my medicine. I do. I think smiling is like a medicine for me. I really do. I think it's a very powerful thing to ease whatever going on in the world. Like, man, I'm gonna laugh about it. I'm gonna find something funny about it, because whether everybody else finds it funny or not, I'm gonna find something funny. Yeah. I mean, I am. I like to laugh. I like to smile, and not laughing at people, and not saying I'm innocent or I've never done that, but it's just a way to relieve the everyday stressful things that I feel like goes on that I have
finding that like silver lining in everything, because there is, if you look for it, right, or there is negative if that's what you're looking for, right? Even just one change in your thought about what you're looking at can shift your entire mood, right? And I know it's easier said than done, but it can be done, right? It takes practice. If you could make choices to allow the negative, then we can make choices to allow for positive change and positive momentum and shifting to happen as well. I did it, while I was using substance. I started to cry out to God and let him know I'm stressed, I have anxiety. And I think even sometimes, when there's peace, those of us who've had a lot of chaos growing up, like you mentioned, arguing, a lot of us grew up that way too.
Right.
And so that was always on the edge of your seat, anxiety in your stomach, like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And sometimes when there's peace, if we aren't dealing with those stressors and breaking some of those patterns, interrupting them, that's what we're trying to do, interrupt the patterns so we can break free from them and do something else. So if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got. Yeah. If you want something, if you want different, you've got to do something different. Right. Yeah. And so I think it's recognizing the pattern that you're in. And if you're learning to sit with the peace, and really allow yourself to feel what that feels like, right? Because then sometimes I know for myself, if there's peace, without realizing it, I've been realizing it, is wanting to create that chaos, um, because I can get really calm in chaos.
Mm,
I
right,
had to, I had to survive. I had to learn how to move.
right.
And, I'm learning how to break that pattern and realize that peace is a birthright.
Mm,
Peace is something that I can have that's undisturbed,
ooh, I like
right?
that.
And
Yeah,
I'm the one that gets the choice to create that peace or
I like
disturb
that.
it myself,
I like that a
right?
lot.
Even if someone else disturbs my
She's not
peace,
pointing at me.
I'm
I was just kidding.
I'm disturbed inside, right? And so
She's eating this.
I'm allowing it. Eh, I'm allowing it. People
Woo!
people are
Let it
relating.
go. Right, right.
Anyways, they say that like 10 minutes of meditation can reduce 10 minutes of meditation. And there's many forms of
Reset,
meditation.
right?
Yeah, 10 minutes can reduce your stress by 30%.
I can see that.
So, if you can do more than that, it lowers your percentage
Right.
of stress
And with Justin,
a
if
lot
like
more.
I hear sometimes at night, we grind our teeth. I'm sure we all have.
Yeah.
You may not know it, but many of us do. I don't know exactly where that's from, but when I was using, I found that I was like I would catch myself, clenching my jaw. I would have to like really like stop and like, but then a minute later I'd be doing it again. So
Yeah.
I broke all my teeth, like legitly, like
Yeah.
I'd be doing in the middle of doing something,
Yeah.
on substance, and I find myself clenching my teeth, or my toes. I would crunch my toes up in my shoe, and this was kind of like my kick, so to speak. And I'm saying this to say, when I was stressed out or like wanting to get something done, or whatever the case was, on substance, you're constantly being stressed. It feels like your
Oh
blood,
yeah.
your heart rate is up. You're constantly doing things. You may think you're calm, but the tips of my toes would be white because I would like crunch them up in my toes. And again, I'm not glorifying anything. What I'm saying is it put a lot of stress on my body, my mind, on my heart. Everything I
Yeah.
did was like very, very stressful. So I've had my fair share of stress. And so for me, 2025, this is a new year, a new me, and I find like I have control, a lot more authority for myself than I was really giving myself credit. And I want to dive into that and then let myself understand and know, like, I have the power to do or not do whatever it is I see fit for my own self. And stress is not one of the things that I want in my heart, in my body, in my veins, in my blood at all. But it's almost like it's not inevitable, but it's something that's it's a part of our life. But it doesn't have to be. Again, through training ourselves, constant, I think, repetitive behaviors, and just really, daily habits to build resilience. That's really what I feel is going to be a great catalyst for me. It's something that I can harness this year to be able to build that callousness for this stress. I don't want it in my life, and I don't have to have it. So I'm going
I
to
think
minimize it.
it's respecting the journey that you're on. I came from a household that had a lot of structure. Like there was, you do this, you do that, everything had a place, and I raised my family that way, and that's how it is here. And I've had to unlearn even some of those patterns and be more flexible and open to change, to having things not always be a certain way,
Right.
right? And and that's opened me up. Or even gosh, I lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. But just embracing, being flexible, being open to at any moment's notice, right? Things can change, and not being so fixated on things have to be this way,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That's something that I've been struggling with
I wish I had more of that.
for this past
I
month.
wish I had more of that.
But even for me, it's like, taking different ways home, not always going the same way. I mean, that's how like regimented and like on task and on point I was in my life, that everything, I did everything, you know um I'd like to say perfectly, but you know, that was what I had in my head with
We've been trained to, like, 9 to
yeah,
5, go to work, come
you
home,
know,
have the strict schedule of, take the kids, do this on a daily basis.
that if anything happened
Outside
outside
of
of
that,
that,
you'd be like,
right, it would throw me like
right.
off.
And there's
It would
nothing wrong
throw
with that.
me into
There's
stress.
absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a schedule, having a regimen,
No,
having
that's
something
not
that you
what I'm
stick
saying.
by,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I encourage that. I mean, we need that, but
I want that.
also
Yeah.
just be open, right? I mean, it just kind of depends on where you're at in your
Right.
journey,
Yeah.
whatever is your soul is speaking to you, right? I mean, we're all here with different purpose and different journeys and things that, you know, we need to align with, right?
Right.
To keep us going on that journey. So
Right.
if you're
Yeah.
still here, you're not done,
Right. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
plug into yourself, get to know what you like, what you don't like, what stresses you out, what brings you joy and peace and happiness, and do those things. And it's a process, and it's not a pretty process all the
Right.
time. It's really
Right. Yeah.
difficult.
People too. You know what I mean? I find that people can be very, very stressful at times. And I
Mm,
myself being a people person, by people person, I mean I say hi to everybody. Like today, again, I said I love you. It's at least 100 people, and
mm,
that's okay to me. I mean, I enjoy being that way,
mm,
but also having the right people around you to so that you're not stressed, or having the people around you to not stress. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of relationships I can look back on right now, and there was I allowed and was allowing people in my life that were
mm.
stressful. But again, I have control of this. I have power of this, and it's okay to step back and say, you know what, I don't want that. I don't want that in my life. And if people can't understand that, that's their loss. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you're
Yeah.
stressing me out. It's not always easy to come to somebody and say, hey, this is a stressful relationship. I mean, let's face it. Like, who goes to somebody and really just like blurts out? I mean, but that's how we should be. I feel like
Mm,
it's okay to be open with what's bothering you. You like letting and allowing and tolerating people that are not better for you and that doing good things for you. It's time. It's time, you guys. And I'm not telling y'all how to be. I'm saying for me, it's time. And I've been really good about it this year and last year,
mm,
getting rid of the things that are stressful, that are
yeah.
not allowing me to be the best me I can be. And I don't want to be stressing for my blessings. You know what I mean? I
Mm,
want to like allow myself the clarity to have open
yeah.
hands and say, God, you know what I mean? Give, you'll bless me, give me what I need, and so I can do his work as well, because this year has been a way of moving for me and momentum, and
Mm,
I want to make sure that I'm doing God's work, as well as what I need for my family, because right now I'm in the mode where I want to set the foundation for my family to
mm,
be stable. If something happens to me, I want stability, you know what I mean? But I got to get the momentum, so that's where I'm at right now. We have stability, we have all the essentials to be
yeah.
great, and it's up to me, and I don't want stress being a factor that's getting anything and keeping me from doing what I need to do, blocking
Mm,
my blessings. So this is going to be a great year. I'm really excited to have all of you here with us,
yes.
and again, we're going to keep on doing
Thank
what we're
you.
doing regardless, because there's people who are depending on us to show up. As a matter of fact, I was reading a text yesterday. It was one of my good friends, her daughter. She said she doesn't really talk to her mom anymore, but she's like,
Mm,
she's seen the TikTok. She's like, I seen the TikTok on you the other day, and
mm,
it made me feel really, really good to see you. And she said something that really stayed with me. She's like, we all knew that you were meant for greatness. Don't forget about us little people when you make it to the top.
mm,
And
mm,
it gave me the full body chill. So I was like, there's a lot of people that are counting on me to show up, and us to be the
mm.
fullest potential of us. And it feels good to have that, people to recognize it and say you are somebody I look up to. And so we're going to continue showing up, doing this, on Wednesdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we encourage you guys to get in here and ask some questions. Again, we
Mm,
haven't quite figured out how we're going to get in. We don't see you guys' comments yet, but we will get this figured out. Again, we're semi new at this, but practice makes perfect. So, we're showing up and make sure that we're showing out every time. So
yes.
again, thank you guys for
Yes.
joining
Thank
us,
you so
and feel free to
much.
comment in the comment box and let us know if you guys have any ideas of what you guys want to
Mm,
talk about. If there's anything that's on your guys' mind that would be a great topic or subject, we'd love to get some people on
yes.
with experience
Please.
of things too. I mean, we don't we're coming up, and next weekend
Mm,
it's going to be huge. This certain guest is amazing, and yes, I can't wait to have this guest get on here. So not this week or weekend, but the following
mm,
one, I think we're going to have our first guest, and we're excited for that. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, don't block your blessings. No stressing if you can help it, but
Mm,
love on each other. You know what I mean? Give each other hugs and like tell people you love them. There's nothing wrong with letting people know that you care.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially for men, like I don't mind. I mean, I'll tell anybody I love them, especially strangers. I mean, I tell people that daily, but keep on, doing what you're doing, treating each other well. And until next time, you guys, we'll see you
Love
guys
you.
next time. Peace. Love y'all. Stay tuned.